And thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. And I practiced this. A very happy Dobro Jutro to everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And yeah, that was the presentation. So enjoy the conference, everybody. Just kidding. Yes. So as Kresimir said, my name is Tim, and it is great to be here, and very flattered to be invited back after last year. And I hope to, like Kresimir said, bring a little bit of a different perspective to the whole topic of young talent. Because as Kresimir said, I lived this. It wasn't in Europe. It was in America. So I think there will be some differences. But I look forward to sharing basically my perspective and the lessons I learned as somebody who started on the mainframe at 19 years old. So yeah, I think I don't want to continue any tool debates or any religious debates, anything like that. I'm just sharing my personal perspective. Of course, every place is different, but I hope that my perspective is valuable as someone who's lived this. So thank you very much. One quick thing before we begin. I love this topic. I get excited about this topic, okay? Really. I'm so indebted to the mainframe. If I start talking too fast, throw something at me, raise your hand, whatever, I apologize. This is really nice for me personally. One big difference from last year, I give almost all of my presentations in German now. So what a treat that I'm able to speak in English today. But the downside is I speak very fast because it's my native language, so my brain goes too quickly for my mouth sometimes. But just let me know, just let me know. I won't spend too long on this because I think most of you know me already, but just a little bit of my background and why I'm quote-unquote qualified to talk about this topic. So just so everybody knows, it's me on the right side in this picture, right here, at one of the coolest places in the world. Usually I give these presentations in Germany, and there's a lot of excitement about that. I think only Armin probably knows where this might be. Do you know where that is? I think we talked about it, yeah. Exactly, the train museum in Nuremberg, yes, Germany. So even though I was born and raised in America, I have a little bit of a history with Europe. Always expected to end up in Germany at some point in my life, but now I'm working in Switzerland. At the age of 27 did I move, and I never expected any of it. And that's one of the points I hope to bring. The mainframe takes you places, and I'm so lucky to be here. Right now, as I said, I'm working as a client technical specialist on our Z DevOps tools at IBM Switzerland, which I absolutely love. It's the easiest job in the world for me because I honestly almost worked for IBM before I worked for IBM. I had to sell these tools internally to my company. I used them every day, so it's very easy for me to explain the benefits they bring. And that's what I did before. I was a COBOL developer right out of university, 19 years old. And then after 5 years or so of being a COBOL developer, they actually gave me a new position because I said, wait a second, we have a lot of problems on the mainframe. We need somebody to solve them. So I became what was called a developer advocate. That was the topic last year, if you remember and you were there, which I could talk about for another 10 hours, but sadly, today's a different topic. I say lifelong mainframe professional. What does that mean? It means I'm 29 and I started on the mainframe at 19, right? So almost 10 years, the anniversary, but it's really the only thing I've done in a professional setting. So I really love it. I'm really thankful for it. And really the only thing you need to know about me, most people know this already, I absolutely love trains. There's a reason I had to leave America, no offense, but I love the trains over here. And I'm the luckiest kid in the world, right? I live in Switzerland in the center of Europe with our amazing train system, and I get to visit amazing places like Zadar. So I'm pretty lucky. Only thing for those who aren't from America, this is always a little fun factoid. I come from Michigan. That's a state by Canada. And what's fun about Michigan, I mean, you can see here, right? It looks like a hand, right? So you know you're from Michigan when you can say, yeah, I live here. I come from here. So in case it helps, I was born here and I lived here, okay? Makes sense to Michiganders, I promise. But regardless, really quick before I begin, I have to share a short story about last year and why I found it a bit ironic that the topic this year was play, okay? So let me explain. So last year, this picture I took last year, a year ago, and look at me. We're talking about play and everybody says, oh, I play sports, I do this. Do I look like I play sports? Okay, I think Yeah, thank you, Sue. But I do play. I play, okay? I like to play video games. It's one of my hobbies. And imagine my excitement when I saw that in the Fortis Club last year, they had a gaming room with a whole bunch of computers. And I told Andrea, my friend, I can't wait. I want to go play some video games, because why not? And we're talking about playing. I went, I took a look at it. I mean, this is the Fortis Club. Look at how cool this is. These cool chairs, all these cool computers. And I couldn't wait. So then, of course, came the night of the party. I had these grand ideas in my head of playing. And I went up, and sorry. And you want to know what really made this hurt the most? Let me explain the conversation I had. I was talking to the bartender, and I said, yeah, I really wanted to play those games. And he said, oh, yeah, we thought the event tonight was adults only. Come on, all right? So listen, I was 28 years old, okay? And that stung a little bit, okay? So I want to say that even though I love that the topic this year is playing, it's a bit ironic because last year I was told I couldn't play. However, good news. Me and Andrea, my beautiful photographer, did go the day before we left, and I was able to play a little bit on the computers. This is me last year. And I mean, does it look like a kid would have a bald spot like that? No, I don't think so, right? So, okay, that's just a little bit. But this year, we couldn't play last night, but just a little bit of an anecdote there. But let's go ahead and actually talk about the reason we're here. And of course, hop into our time machine, the DeLorean, because I want to take you back a little bit, right, to set some history before we talk about what my life as a mainframe developer was like, okay? So I'm going to enter some parameters here into our DeLorean, right? I want to go back to a time where these were the tools of a mainframe developer, right? An old COBOL textbook that's falling apart on yellowing paper, right? ISPF is the only interface that you have access to write your code. And one of these beautiful IBM reference cards at every desk, right? These are the tools that we're used to. I know they rock. I love them, yeah? But if I had to guess, yeah, they're wonderful. But if I had to guess right, we're probably back in, I don't know, 81, 82, something like that. I think that's correct. Oh, I accidentally set it to 2016. Okay. Because these were the tools I was given when I started as a mainframe developer right out of university. So, of course, this is not a debate about whether these are good tools, right? We know they are incredible for what they can do. But remember, me getting off of 4 years and $50,000 of debt, a little bit nervous about my future career on the mainframe, this didn't help much as my first impression. And this is almost how my first day went, right? They literally gave me a COBOL textbook as the very first thing, and I said, wow, maybe I gotta look for something else, right? I was nervous, I was scared. I had to become productive quickly using a completely foreign skill set, and yeah, I almost reconsidered. But like I said, when you're $50,000 in debt, you don't have a choice, so I stayed at the job. And was that the best decision I ever made in my life? Of course, right? But I think what I hope to bring here today is some of the lessons that I learned, right? Because I have a little bit of a different perspective. I don't have a super long history with the mainframe. I didn't know what the mainframe was when I started, right? And as someone whose job it then became to solve the problems that we had on the mainframe, hopefully I can bring that perspective. And that's what I want to share with you today, some of the lessons that I learned. Is the pace okay? Am I going too fast? Oh, good. Okay.
What are you saying?
Yeah. It doesn't make sense regardless of how quick I talk, Paul. Don't worry. Yeah. So, okay. First lesson that I learned. First impressions are everything, okay? And this was very, very true for me, right? I remember my very first day, right? And very first thing I noticed, they got all of us, all of the new, oh, we have some Americans in here. Auto Owners Insurance fans? Anybody? Thanks, a little bit. Sorry. Usually no one knows the company. Thanks, Sue. Thanks, Sue. But yeah, so I can actually say the company, but don't tell them I talked about this. But regardless, yeah. We got into a room, right? It was a whole bunch of new hires, new graduates from university. And there was about 15 of us or so. And we were all in the same room for about 10 minutes. Because then somebody came in and said, hey, welcome to Auto Owners, welcome to IT, you're going to be a software developer, this is great. You 10 come with me, and you 5 stay here. Immediately, I understood something was different, right? In fact, our lives were about to be so different, we couldn't even stay in the same room for our orientation. And what is the guess as to what the difference was between those two groups, right? The mainframers on one side, the other software developers on the other. And that was not helped when I was led to my desk, and I'm not joking when I say that the COBOL textbook had pages falling out of it. It was from 1970, okay? And they said, oh yeah, this is where you'll be writing your code, here, do some exercises, right? We know how awesome the mainframe is. We know this now. Think of me as 19 years old, and my very first impression being a falling apart textbook and an outdated tool set, right? And of course, now I know better. But there are people who don't make it that far, right? Yeah. The first impression is everything, yeah? And now we know, a little bit hard to see, but we know that tools like Git, Jenkins, VS Code, Docker, right? All of those work. They can have fun. They can play with the mainframe. And this, if I was told you're a software developer, doesn't matter where your code's running, doesn't matter what language it is, here's your tool set, that's a lot different of a first impression. And this is not what I was given. I don't know if this is a problem at the companies that you work for or work with, but for me, it was major. And that first impression lasts a lifetime, truly. Me, I was a software developer. It was my career to work on the mainframe. But for a lot of people, this was all they ever saw, right? And that kind of bred the idea, wow, the mainframe is old. Everything is different, right? We know better. Many people don't. So I think we need to be careful about our first impressions that we're giving people. Even if we're joking about it, saying, oh, it's old, whatever, a lot of people will take that to heart. So that for me was very important. I had no choice but to stay, but many people, that first impression is all they will ever have. So I think our language on this matters and what we're presenting as the mainframe. But we're all at a mainframe modernization event, so I don't think we need to hear this, but just as an example. Next, what a surprise, right? We're replaying the biggest hits that we talked about over the last day. But this one really hit home to me. No one wants to work on a system they're told is going away. Does anybody know what this is? Probably not. That's okay. Yeah, no problem. This is the logo of something called Duck Creek. Why it's called Duck Creek, I have no idea. I have nothing against Duck Creek. They're probably fine. But what they are is they're a cloud-based insurance rating platform that was the future of my company. Every single thing that was running on CICS or on the back end was eventually someday going to go to Duck Creek, okay? And I remember it was my 3rd week at Auto Owners Insurance, and everybody had this big meeting on their calendar. It was the future of IT at AO, right? We were all pretty excited. And we all went, and the CIO talked, and he introduced Duck Creek as our platform, and how we had a plan to get off of the mainframe, and we were going to, within 5 years, have our first line of business completely off of the mainframe and into Duck Creek. Some people cheered, some people thought it was great, but I'll never forget the walk back to my desk on this day, okay? So mainframe was so different, we couldn't even sit with the rest of the people. We had a separate annex, right? And when I got into that annex, I didn't see a single person working. Every single team was in a huddle, talking amongst themselves, and nobody was smiling. Because what were we basically just told? What you're doing does not matter. You are purely maintenance mode, so we can get rid of you. Who is excited to work on a platform like that? Nobody, right? And not only that, imagine you were like me, 3 weeks into your new career, and you're basically being told, unlearn everything you learned, learn it in this new old way, these skills are non-transferable, and maybe we'll find a different position for you after we're off the mainframe, right? And we lost people. We lost many people. And it was all about our first impressions and our messaging. Again, I stayed. I didn't have a choice. But what's not going to surprise you, right? I left Auto Owners after about 8 years. Remember, our plan was after 5 to have our smallest line of business into Duck Creek. We weren't even in beta testing on Duck Creek. Nothing against Duck Creek, I'm sure, but we realized that we couldn't just lift and shift, right? And because this was our plan, we ignored the problems for all of those 5 years leading up to it. Because we said, it's going away anyway, why should we invest in this, right? And that's when I said, okay, we're approaching this cliff, give me a position as developer advocate, and I will modernize the development experience on Z. I loved my job a lot, but when you get a job offer in Switzerland, you can't say no. So here I am. But I hope Auto Owners is doing well. Love them, love them. This, again, something we've talked about, right? COBOL, or PL1, is not the problem. The language is never the problem. And I'm hopefully a living example of this. I learned COBOL in 2 weeks. Maybe the textbook sucked a little bit, but I was able to find the resources I need to learn COBOL. It's procedural, it's basically English, okay, no problem. What took me 2 years was our tools, our processes, and the fact that I had to unlearn every single thing that I learned in university. I mean, what kind of sell is that, right? Thank you for spending all this money, or if you're lucky in Europe, you don't have to do that as much, but to get this degree, now you start fresh. You learn everything completely new. And maybe there's some benefits to that, right? But for me, it wasn't COBOL. I didn't think it was lame that I was working on COBOL. I understood the importance of our batch COBOL, our JCL. What I didn't understand is why our release process took 2 weeks and was a manual process that I had to get on the phone and call our Endeavor administrators, right? Those were the things that were difficult, not learning the COBOL. And with a modern tool set and modern processes, this isn't a problem. At least for me, it wasn't. So I hear all the time, we can't find COBOL talent. We can't find PL1 talent. We can't, I don't think that's true. I don't think it's a programming skills problem. It's probably a culture problem, as we've talked about, right? And that was 100% what it was at my company. I didn't care that it was COBOL. I cared that every single thing we were doing was different and older and didn't make sense to me. So definitely my 2 cents. Now, again, as I said, when I started as a mainframe developer, our lives were so different, we weren't even in the same room, right? And I immediately understood how different I was. And I'll never forget, like I said, if we don't put our money where our mouth is and we don't modernize our mainframe, we can say the mainframe is just another platform, but the secret is out that we don't truly believe that when we're talking completely different languages. I'll never forget. I was walking through the hallway about 6 months after I started, and I ran into one of my colleagues, name's Phil, great guy, I miss Phil. Actually, I should go see him. No, I remember, I'll make a note of that. Regardless, Phil's a great guy, he still works at Auto Owners as a Java developer. And I said, oh, hey, Phil, we met at the orientation just briefly. Remember, how have your first 6 months at Auto Owners been? He's like, oh, yeah, it's been really, really good. And I said, yeah, it's been good for me, too. I mean, what do you think about this Endeavor thing? I mean, what's Endeavor? Oh, well, it doesn't matter. I mean, where do you write your code? I mean, we are doing this in ISPF. What's ISPF? And immediately it became evident we were speaking completely different languages, right? It was like I was speaking Japanese and he was speaking English. It was like I was speaking Swiss German and he was speaking German, right? 2 completely different languages, yeah? And what I think was really important is that we could claim that the mainframe was modern, but until we start talking and having conversations like, oh yeah, my code is also in Git. Yeah, I also run unit tests and do automated testing, right? We need to be able to speak that same language, and to be able to do that, we need to make sure we're treating the mainframe not differently. It's just another platform. And that starts from first impressions, that starts from orientation, and it starts with the tools that we use. Again, this one won't surprise you, right? Subject matter experts are retiring. And we had many people like this. And I was 100% reliant on these people, okay? Welcome, Toby. And without these people, I would not have been able to do my job. So, of course, we know these people who their entire job was to help people, right? Maybe they were approaching retirement. We didn't put them on projects anymore because, oh crap, they're going to be gone in a few years. We need to make sure they document. They need to do whatever, right? Yeah, exactly. See? Is that you? It could be. Is it? Okay. You're right. Well, I don't have my photo credit here. Sorry. Never expected to be caught. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, they were these people who were so experienced, and we had so many of these people. And I'll never forget, right? So I was thankfully not on this team, but there was a team, our life insurance systems, right? And this was the oldest, most complex monolithic application that we had at my company, okay? And they realized, too late, that they had a major problem. Because there was a guy, his name was not Phil, his name was Jerry. Jerry was approaching retirement. And they realized that they didn't invest in this application the last 5 years. So, what happened the week after Jerry retired? Any guesses? Of course. Yes, production problems, right? The entire life rating system went down. And what we did is we tried. We threw our best at it, right? They worked for 3 days nonstop to try to find out what was happening. They did not find out what was happening. And you want to know what we had to do? Call Jerry, who was on the beach in Florida, enjoying the sun, and we had to swallow our pride and say, Jerry, I'm so sorry. Do you know what this message means? Thankfully, he did, and he was nice about it. But he also could have very easily said, not my job, not my problem, right? And maybe he could have said, yeah, I'll even come back and work for you guys, yeah? $1,000 an hour, and what choice do you have, right? And we weren't able to replace Jerry. And a lot of that had to do with our culture, our tool chain, the things that we were doing on the mainframe that were so different, right? So that was something I learned. And I'll share a story at the end that many of you have probably heard about my version of Jerry on my team and why we were in trouble. This is kind of the last point I want to make because, look at me. I was born and raised Saginaw, Michigan. Not the nicest place. Don't Google it. But regardless, the mainframe can totally take you places. I'm sitting here on the Dalmatian coast. I got that right? Dalmatian? Yeah, okay, good. Yeah. Not the dog. Is it different? Dalmatian? No. Is it the same? Is it literally just like the dog? Oh, nice. Okay. Not bad. Talking to you all. And quick question. Does anybody know where this is? Somewhere in America. It is somewhere in America.
It's not. Nashville?
Oh, yeah, I was trying to trick you because it doesn't look like Nashville, but it is Nashville, okay? Yes. This is Nashville, Tennessee, baby, yeah? And what's important about this picture is two things, right? Here's me. This was May 2021. And I had on, Americans will know Rick Steves, at least I hope. Rick Steves rocks. Yeah, sorry Europeans, you're missing out. But Rick Steves is an American travel writer, and travel was really a passion of mine. And the reason I chose this picture for this slide is because this was me a week before my life completely changed. This was me 1 week before I got the email that changed my life about coming to work at IBM in Switzerland. And it was a difficult decision to make. I had never been to Switzerland. I had to Google where Zurich was, right? But it all ended up working out. And what I really want my message to be, and I tell these young people I'm working with all the time, I'm not even 30 yet, and I live in an amazing place, and I travel, I get to see all this, and I don't think that would have been possible without such an amazing mainframe community and such a unique place that we work. So yes, I love traveling, and this is a week before I realized that I was going to be here, and I'm so thankful for it. And really, if you invest in the mainframe and you don't fall for the first impressions or the lies that we hear, you can really go places, and hopefully I'm an example of that, right? And with a properly invested in mainframe, we grow the next generation of Jerrys, right? Of whoever that is. And with advanced tool chains, advanced processes, things like that, we can ensure that our young talent, like me, becomes immediately productive, is invested in the platform. They can deliver at the speed that we require. We can't just say, we're mainframe, we go slower, right? That doesn't work anymore. And they can apply what they've learned. We've talked so much about using the same tool chain across, both worlds, right? And more. And that's why, hopefully, my perspective is valuable about how we can make sure we're investing in that next generation. Now, I always end all my presentations with this story. So if you've heard it, I apologize. And this will be easy. Does anybody know who that is? Rosalind, yes, Grace Hopper, right? this story isn't about Grace Hopper. This story is about Suzanne, okay? And Suzanne was on my team, and she was our Jerry. I'm sure you all have a Jerry. I'm sure you all have a Suzanne. We have these people who know the system better than anybody. And I will never forget, one day, the conversation I had with Suzanne. And I get to see Suzanne in a few weeks. How cool. She's coming to my Return to America party. I'm very excited. I'm not going to tell her. I talk about her all the time to people, but regardless. No, I did ask her, and she said, yes, I can tell this story. But regardless, we had a flow chart in our department, right? And it was a simple question. Are you having a problem? Yes? Ask Suzanne. Okay, makes sense, right? Are you having a problem? No? Yes, you're having a problem. Ask Suzanne, right? No matter what, we were always asking Suzanne for help. And one day, I was having a problem, so I followed the flowchart. Ask Suzanne. Okay, good. And Suzanne sat right behind me. And I turned around and I said, hey, Suzanne, I'm having a problem with this. Do you have any tips for me? She said, what's the program number? And I said, oh, it's this. And she said, okay, 1 second. So she gets up from her desk, and she walks to the other side of the room, and she finds a file cabinet. She opens that file cabinet, and she pulls out a folder with the year 1982 on it, written in big marker. She looks through it, and she pulls out her handwritten notes from 1982 about that program, and she gave it to me and said, here you go. And it was at that moment that I made a very important decision. And it was, when Suzanne retires, I'm going to retire as well. Because what's the point, right? And truly, with people like this, we need their expertise. We need their knowledge. And with the properly invested in young mainframe workforce and the right tools and the right processes and the right culture change, we build that next generation of Suzannes, we build that next generation of Jerrys, and we need to. We owe it to ourselves. So hopefully I was able to give a bit of perspective on what young talent on the mainframe for me was like, and thank you very much for your time today. Not bad, not bad. Yeah. Thank you.